Hey guys,
大家好
Sam here.
Danny here.
So welcome back to our channel. Today we're doing a really interesting video. We're going to compare the cultural differences between growing up in China versus growing up in Canada.
今天呢，我和 Summer 一起探讨一下在加拿大长大和在中国长大的成长有哪些不同。Let's start.
Okay.
So let's first just give you guys a little background about how she was raised and how I was raised.
Yeah, so I was actually born in Spain, and if you saw our Get to Know Us video, then you probably already know all this information. But me and my family moved to Canada when I was almost 5 years old. So I started kindergarten here, and yeah, I've been raised and grew up in Canada ever since.
Sweet. And then as for me, I actually came to Canada when I was 16. I had been here ever since. Okay, so we're gonna talk about 4 key differences growing up in Canada versus growing up in China. So difference number 1, birthdays. 生日. Growing up in China, I barely celebrate birthdays, and my most memorable birthdays was at the age of 10, and I remember my parents invited everyone, and we had a birthday cake. I never get any birthday gifts. I didn't have any birthday even when I moved to Canada up until I started dating Summer, and birthdays became a pretty big deal. And even that, I guess you always been asking me what do you want for birthdays? And I just say, I don't know, because growing up and I just never have any birthday gifts or have celebrate my birthdays. What about you?
I was the complete opposite. We always celebrated my birthday. So before I started school, my family would always have like a huge birthday party with me, with family and friends. And then when I was in school, I always had like birthdays with all my school friends. Actually, a lot of my classmates, their moms would bring cupcakes for the whole class on their birthdays. I never got that, but it was a pretty common thing here in Canada. So yeah, I always look forward to waking up on my birthday, getting a present from my parents, then having a party, getting more presents. So
lucky you.
I know, it's kind of
big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal here, especially for kids.
So difference number 2, vacations. 度假. Grew up in China, I didn't really get to go on any vacations because my parents think vacations are a waste of time, and instead of going on vacations, you can rather just go study harder and get better marks, and that way they will make them really proud. Parents will sign us up for more extracurricular courses to boost our marks, and we don't really get to enjoy it during summer holidays or winter holidays. My only memorable vacation was at my grade 1, and in the summer holiday my cousin actually took me to Hangzhou, the West Lake, for a 3 days vacation. Things might have changed, but I feel like in my generations all my classmates pretty much are the same way. Since I moved to Canada and I started taking vacations like every single year, so we recently did a worldwide trip and just seeing all those places, because I feel like traveling is really a positive thing that you can learn everything. Those experiences something you cannot buy. So for me, vacation, holidays, go on trips are a very big deal now. What about you?
I always go on vacations, my family and I, every year during the summer. Sometimes during the winter we'd go somewhere on vacation. Some years we went somewhere really far, like Europe or even Egypt.
Nice.
Most years kind of stayed closer to home, Canada, US. We went to Arizona quite a bit. So yeah, it was during the summer. I think all the kids usually would go on a family vacation. A lot of kids in Canada go camping. We never did that. Camping's not really big in my family, but yeah, a lot of my friends every summer go camping. And so we'd only go on vacation maybe a few weeks in the summer. So the rest of the time when we were out of school, just kind of hang out, play video games.
Yeah.
Didn't study at all. No extra
classes.
No extra like school related classes. So it's pretty chill summer holidays here in Canada for sure.
Yeah. Difference number 3, 兴趣爱好, hobbies. So grew up in China, I don't really get to pursue my hobbies, and and I didn't really have any soccer classes or swimming classes or basketball practices and stuff. My parents never signed me up for any of those classes. I don't really get to have a hobbies when I was in China. You know, I know a lot of students have piano lessons, but I've never had any hobbies. I love basketball and, you know, soccer and those like sports, but didn't really get to sign up for any of those classes. Maybe I'm just not talented enough to be able to move on to the different levels, because in my parents' eyes, they think that, oh, you just needed to go study harder and get better marks, and then that's the only way for it to be successful. And recently, actually, we discovered my niece in Canada. I saw her handout, the school that gave her, had a list of all the classes they offer, such as early parenting, cooking, and public speaking. So these are the stuff that I feel like it's very useful, very interesting.
So I always got to pursue my hobbies, my interests, and for me, my interests were always changing. So I've taken piano lessons, violin, ballet. I've taken swimming lessons, tennis, lots of different things. And the reason for that is because in Canada, you don't get that much homework, especially in elementary school. So you have a lot of free time, and parents want to kind of keep you busy, have you learn new things, new skills. So it's pretty big in Canada to do these kind of extracurricular activities.
Nice.
So how did you learn how to swim?
Swim, I think I learned by myself. I remember since I came to Canada, I started to go to gyms, and they have a pool, and I started to learn lessons and basic techniques that human needs to learn. It's
like a survival
skills, and that's how I learned swimming. I'm a pretty good swimmer, actually, right?
Yeah.
Last but not least, difference number 4, discipline, 惩罚. So I have to admit that growing up in China and in my household, violence seems to be the only resort when it comes to discipline in my family. And whether I misbehaved or had a bad marks in school, my dad would beat me up. And that was pretty much carry on through my entire adolescence. Looking back, I don't really blame him or hate him or anything, because that was just the way he was raised, and that was the culture in my family. And my cousin all got beaten up, and so no one really felt left out, and it's like a tradition. And I felt like I am who I am today is because my dad's parenting method, and I think it's pretty effective. And I grew up into be okay, and I didn't do any of those bad stuff, and so I think it's effective, because I remember back in the day I was a pretty bad kid. I had a lot of trouble in class, in school, and so for him to discipline me is actually made me grow. So, but we're not gonna discipline our kids. We're in that way, obviously. We're in Canada, and I don't feel it's a good way to discipline a kid. What about you?
Violence was never in our household. Never got beat up or hit for doing anything wrong.
Well, I mean, as girls, probably you're just chances are you're not gonna get beat up, and
I guess. Well, my brother didn't get beat up either.
Yeah.
The only thing would happen, maybe my parents would yell at me, or they would take away my video games or
the cell phones,
computer or something. Yeah. So that was kind of the punishment. That I got. A lot of kids in Canada, when they misbehave, they get something called grounded, which means they're not allowed to go out and play with their friends. My parents didn't really do grounded because they don't even
know what it is.
Yeah, what that was. It's a very Western form of punishment.
Yeah.
But yeah, and in Canada, if you do use violence on your kids can report it, or they can tell a teacher, and then the government or social services will come investigate. So it's a really big deal here.
Domestic violence is a big deal.
Yeah.
Here. So guys, today we talk about 4 major differences in growing up in China versus growing up in Canada. And
that was just kind of our experiences in our childhood, based on 20 years ago. So a lot of things could have changed right now. I mean, things in China definitely probably have changed.
For sure.
In Canada, I think it's kind of pretty similar, but it's possible it's changed too. So if you've grown up in China more recently or in Canada, share your experience below on these different topics or even other topics on what your childhood was like. We'd love to kind of see what's changed in the world.
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna do more videos with those kind of comparisons, and we really appreciate your feedback. And leave a comment and tell me if you enjoyed this type of topics or if you enjoy my Chinese explanations. And yeah, 如果喜欢我们的视频，请点击关于我们的频道哦。
Thanks, guys. 谢谢。
谢谢。See you next time.
Bye.
So birthday number 1.
Birthday number 1.
All right. Difference number 4.
You do that again. I was like looking at that.
Your experience in sharing. Yeah. So guys, let's share experience in this. Just say what type of experience you have.